Reviews of books I haven't read in years.
Okay. Magic: The Gathering, Arena by William F. Forstchen. Forstchen, maybe? I don't know. So this is one of those books that I read when I was like in maybe 6th grade, and I had a moment of, am I allowed to read this? Because I had moved to reading adult fantasy rather than young adult fantasy in probably about the 4th or 5th grade. Like, I still occasionally picked up young adult, but I mainly picked up adult fantasy. And most adult fantasy, doesn't cover that many adult topics. It's mostly just fantasy. But occasionally, there's a book that was clearly actually aimed at adults and not aimed at the 14 and 15-year-olds that read fantasy. And this one has a relatively explicit sex scene in it. I remember they're in a bath. And I remember a lot more of the book, but I remember specifically sitting there reading that scene and going, am I allowed to read this? I don't think I am. Overall, it's set in the world of the card game Magic: The Gathering. There is a guy who is a member of one of the 5 element-based houses, and his people had been completely destroyed, and he's the last surviving one, and he comes to town on a mission of revenge! But meanwhile, he gets involved in all the other houses, and there's drama. And this cover actually does represent a scene, which I always find weird how many books the covers don't represent an actual scene. But he's fighting another wizard who calls skeletons, and calls too many, and they get out of hand, and it's a pretty cool scene. I will admit, for a book that's like, cross-merchandised with a card game, it's pretty good.